Yo, here's another one of these techniques that I use way too much, to the point where I probably should start thinking about alternatives, because it's getting a bit much. So the basic idea is using a pitch shifter to add upper harmonics to sounds, as opposed to doing the same with like a saturator or with boosting the height. This is just an alternative technique. I've got a few example sounds here. So basically the idea is you shift the sound up by 12 semitones. It's probably best to stick to 12, just because then it's an octave and you make sure that it stays in key and stuff. And then you can kind of turn the mix up and down, and it'll give you this upper layer to this sound. So let's maybe listen on these few example sounds. Just mix the pitch shifter in here, and then maybe change the grain size. You can hear it has this kind of grainy sound to it, so that's something that you'll need to be aware of, because it really doesn't take transients too well. It also really depends which pitch shifter you use. Different pitch shifter have different sounds. Bitwig's default pitch shifter is a very grainy, very sort of dirty sounding pitch shifter, which I personally quite enjoy. I often like that it has this kind of grainy character, this really sort of, if you turn the mix all the way up and the grain size down here, you can really hear the graininess here. But if you want something a bit cleaner, for example, you could use something like Kilohertz pitch shifter, because it has this autocorrelation built in, and this just allows it to be a little less grainy, a little less rough, I guess. You can also use this to add lower harmonics, of course. So like if we wanted to add some bass to this, maybe set this to -12. And then often what I would do is that I would have this in a parallel chain. So I have one dry chain here, and then one chain with a pitch shifter where I can kind of filter this layer and like add other effects to it and stuff. Having this at 100% mix. There's also some other pitch shifters you can experiment with. So for example, there's Little Altar Boy, of course, which is not a granular pitch shifter as I understand it, so it has a very different sound. I can hear a bit of graininess, but Little Altar Boy really has its own kind of sound. This way you can kind of shift the harmonic center of gravity, I guess, of your sound, like shift it up, shift it down by mixing this in. Also, maybe another alternative would be something like Prisma, which I assume is going to be like a spectral pitch shifter, so you can pitch shift with this too. And then mix this in. So lots of different possibilities for like mixing these sounds, and you can get some really nice sort of gritty high layers with this. So if we listen to maybe this bass, I think this was yeah, so we can get like this pitch shifter here, 12 semitones up, group this, and then we can start maybe filtering this a little. Get this really nice and gritty top end. If we wanted to make it sound even more granular, we could use something like a tremolo. I talked about that in a previous video, so. And then we could like automate the gain of this layer to really give it sort of this upper harmonic resonance that comes in, I guess. So we could have it like come in here. You get the idea. And for this kind of stuff, in this case, the graininess of this pitch shifter is actually a bonus, but it is something to be aware of, that different pitch shifters have different artifacts, and you might want to choose different ones depending on what kind of sound character you're going for. For example, here, if we have these transients here, if I maybe even make these transients more extreme, to really kind of show that this pitch shifter doesn't take that very well, and then limit this. If we just listen to the pitch shifted version, you can hear. We maybe delete the automation here. It kind of loses that percussive movement, so that's something to be aware of. You can also use this to add like new transients in and stuff, but it's not going to preserve this super well. Well, maybe a different pitch shifter. I think Little Altar Boy might preserve this a little better, I'm not sure. Yeah, you can hear, for example, this now, this really preserves these different hits. So that's something to kind of beware of when you're choosing the pitch shifter to use this kind of technique.